The car in front of me had a decal on the windshield, a big giant decal in red, one of those "Fear This" decals. It was a Saturn Ion.
It was probably a 99 or something like that too. And I will tell you that "Fear This" belongs back in the 90s.
Right. It made my day. Like, I hope this guy bought it with it on it. Like,
no, what I hope it was a time capsule. I hope he's wearing like Jinko jeans, sipping on Crystal Pepsi.
Yes. Yes, that would be exquisite, man. He's just got a can of Surge with him and everywhere he goes. You know what blows my mind, too, is I don't ever remember Saturn being a badass car. Like, that was always like a family car company. That was they never had a sports car, did they?
No, I was just about to say they actually did. It was called the Saturn Sky. It was the
they named their sports car Sky.
Yes, the Sky. It kind of looked like it was trying to be a Corvette. I do remember seeing a lot of them. I don't know if it came factory like this, but they had straight pipe coming off the sides down the side of it. So it was like a sports car, but tried to also be like a muscle car at the same time. It was really weird, but at the same time, I kind of really wanted one.
Yeah, I wish we had Philbilly on this one because he's a car guy. He would probably really get into this one.
Yeah, I'm looking at him right now. Saturn Sky. I don't recall. I must have been just thinking up of the straight pipe, or maybe it was just one or two that I saw that was like this. But they've got some with like Lamborghini doors. They've got convertibles, and it's just like you think of Saturn and then you think of sports car, and it just doesn't compute.
No, it doesn't. I think of Saturn, and I think of like a mom with jeans too high taking her like 6 kids to soccer practice. That's what I think of when I think of Saturn.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. You have decided to tune into a Horrible Gaming Podcast. And guys, this is a very special Horrible Gaming Podcast. It is our 50th episode. And keeping with the fact that we're a Horrible Gaming Podcast, what special thing are we doing for our 50th episode? Absolutely nothing. That's right. Not a thing. We're just going to do a regular show. But we want to say we appreciate you guys for tuning in to 50 of these freaking things. And with me is
Neil, a.k.a. Tiny Wizard.
So, again, going right into the credits, number one with a bullet, thank you guys for tuning in, giving us the views and the listens. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you guys. And hopefully we entertain you guys for, the hour that we're supposed to entertain you and possibly the hour and 20 minutes that we seem to always go. As far as credits go, Mark Bell, he has done all of our original graphics for this show, if you're watching it on YouTube. Thank you to him for that. And then, of course, Nicholas Van Sliders does the theme song for this show and all of the shows here at Old Man Gaming, and we appreciate him for that. Check out his music. Actually, 2 days ago, if you're watching this on YouTube, yesterday, if you're listening to this, we will have premiered his 5th single for our channel, Need You Tonight. So go ahead and check that one out.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to fan interaction, top of the show. That's where we like to read the comments that you guys post, and we like to ask you guys questions. We like to decide the horrible arena winners. And we just generally like to talk to you guys about stuff. We did not get any comments whatsoever this week. It was rare, but we didn't get any comments except for Kayla. She decided to vote, though it pains me because he had to question if Maxis still exists. When I have the most hours in a Maxis game, I'm going to vote for Project Solar, says Kayla. And that's fair enough. We are kind of in a weird situation because Phil Billy was on the show last week, and while he did not comment, Neil can attest to this. He did vote for my game off air, so we're kind of in a weird tie situation again. I don't necessarily think either one of our games were like I bowed out the week before because I felt like Neil had outpitched me, but I don't think either one of us were outpitched last week. So what we're gonna do is we're going to call it a tie. I mean, I guess we could call it a tie tentatively. If somebody wants to back vote, maybe we'll accept it. But for the time being, we're going to call this the first ever tie, Neil. So I guess for a 50th, we are doing something different.
What if like a year from now, we just go back into the comments of this video and like the voting has changed? Honestly, what if it's like that for all of the videos?
Right.
Just imagine
possible. That would be really weird, wouldn't it? That would be really weird. I don't know what we would do at that point. I guess we can't really take a vote can't really take a vote then because we've got to cut it off at some point. We would create controversy.
This is true.
So it's a tie then. It's a definite tie. As far as everything else, we did ask a question. I believe it was worst enemy you've ever faced in a game, maybe bad design, most annoying bad guy. Neil, you were the one that asked the question, so I'm guessing you had an answer.
Yes, I did. So I finished Doom Eternal a little while ago, and
I know what you're gonna say already. I think you've mentioned it on the show before.
Yeah, there is an enemy called the Marauder, and it is actually presented as a boss partway through the game, and it totally upends the whole formula of the game. Doom is very fast-paced, go, 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 go. The Marauder has to be taken on one-on-one methodically and like not just guns blazing. I will say, once you know what you're doing with the Marauder, he's actually pretty easy. But it's just strange that this one enemy type is just thrown totally in left field. And there's actually so much like actual controversy around it, at least there was, that there were opinion pieces written on the Marauder. Yeah, like, really? Is it too hard? Is it OP? Because this thing can only be hurt when it flashes green and is about to attack you. If you get too close, he shoots you. If you get too far away, he charges you or sends out a dog. And literally any time you try to shoot at him at all, he immediately pulls out a shield and blocks everything you do and is resistant to all weapons. He's considered a super heavy enemy. So it was tough for a while, but honestly, it's stupid simple to beat him. You just have to control him until then. But I just thought that was very strange, just design wise from the rest of the game. Just didn't really fit.
Yeah, I mean, for a fast-paced game like that, that's kind of a weird one, I would have to say. For me, it's anything that flies. And while I understand that their design, like, you have to have them in games places, the minute I hear wings, I swear, I roll my eyes, I sigh, I get very unhappy. Either wings or propellers just make me sad inside. I think that was one of my biggest complaints for the Borderlands takedown, the newest one. You walk in the door, and the first, like, horde of enemies that comes at you are flying creatures that are armored. I'm like, oh, my God, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. They always zip around. You can't shoot them. If you're in a melee game, you have to wait till they attack you, which is just annoying and time-consuming. And if you miss it, you got to wait. And a lot of them aren't hard to kill. A lot of them don't have a lot of health. They aren't particularly challenging. It's just annoying. They just flap around your head and smack you. I'm going to give you a specific breed, though. It's from Monster Hunter World. I'm sure Phil Billy is listening, knows exactly what I'm saying, and is going, hell yes, somewhere. The Vespoid are the most annoying creatures I have ever encountered in any video game ever. They are... So in Monster Hunter World, you have these maps, right, that you explore, and that's where you stalk your monsters through. While there's giant monsters to hunt are the primary thing, there's also packs of small monsters around that make the fight a little bit interesting. Sometimes if you take down a big monster in an area where they are, they'll swarm him, which is really cool. Or they'll attack you sometimes and screw you up. But the Vespoid are these like oversized mosquitoes that just float around in certain areas. What they do is they just float there for the most part, and they wait, and they slowly start to float towards you. Normally, this doesn't matter, but almost every time you will be fighting a monster, and they'll just be kind of floating around. And when they get close enough, they sting you, which paralyzes you. It doesn't do any real damage. It just paralyzes you and drops you to the ground. It is the most annoying creature ever. The monster will run off to another area, so you'll drop to sharpen your weapon, and one of these stupid things will fly from off screen and sting you in the back of the head, and then you twitch on the ground for 10 minutes. It's so annoying. It's easily the most annoying thing in the world. Vespoid are the worst. If I had to pick one thing that I would take completely out of Monster Hunter World, it would be the Vespoid. They are the worst. All right. And that's basically it for fan interaction, man. We didn't have a lot of comments. The Kevin took a week off. Kev, comment on this one just so we know you're okay, buddy. Because to go from 12 comments to 0 is weird. I think maybe we might have offended him.
My wife actually even said something too. Whenever she commented, she's like, I didn't see anything at all.
Where was Kevin? What's
Right.
weird, he commented on everything else we posted this week. So that's why I'm like, did we say something to piss off Kevin? Kevin, if we pissed you off, we're sorry. We're idiots, but we're sorry. Come back to us, buddy. Okay. So we should probably ask a question, shouldn't we?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. I want to find out what you guys thought about Ubisoft Forward. I don't know how many of you guys will answer this. I don't know how many of you guys watched it, but we're going to talk about it a lot. This show is going to be all about Ubisoft Forward. We are recording it literally 8 hours after it happened, so it's going to dominate this show. We want to know what you guys thought. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are we wrong? Are we right? Like, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and or in any of the places, and we'll try and read them out next week.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
This brings us to our first and possibly second talking point of the podcast, everybody. And we already mentioned it. Ubisoft Forward was today. Their supposed answer to not having an E3 conference this year was this online special that they did. And it was something. So, Neil, what do we want to do first? Do we want to do the negative or the positive? Like, do we want an up note or do you just want to go through it chronologically? I'm okay with whatever you want to do.
You know what? Let's do chronologically.
Okay.
I can't remember everything exactly in order as it happened, but I think chronologically is the best way to tackle it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's for an odds and ends. So let's get right into the Forward. They open with probably the best part of the entire Forward, in my opinion, which is a deep dive. Well, not a deep dive, but much more information on Watchdogs Legion. They showed you gameplay. They showed a new trailer. They gave us a date, which was a mistake, but we'll get into that. And then they showed us a little bit more of what the game's going to be, a little bit more of the polish that the game's going to have. So they opened right up with Watchdogs Legions. We made this guy really happy. I've told everybody I had no interest in the last two games. This game looks great to me. Along with this, and I don't know if you want to talk about this now or later, but along with this, they got media outlets got hands-on time with Watchdogs Legion, and I actually watched a couple of those videos in the meantime while I was waiting for the podcast to start. So I'd like to share that at some point during this. But what do you think about Watchdogs Legion? Let's get you your first impression before I get into that.
So that little movie that they showed at the very beginning before they showed the gameplay and everything,
Right.
I was just kind of really thrown off by it.
Yeah,
like,
so was I.
It didn't inform me of the game at all. It was what we already knew. If they would have started like the very first announcement with that, I think that would have been interesting. But it did nothing but just kind of take me out of the moment and make me wonder what was going on. I almost thought that it was like, well, first it had the little splash on it, not in-game footage,
Right.
which is like, oh, okay, well, I don't know, like, what this is supposed to be then. Like, is this supposed to be like a TV show they're making, or?
Right. I don't want to interrupt you so early,
Right,
but
go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I agree. The movie was not the way to open. I'm glad, though, that they followed it immediately up with information on the game, because I was very afraid halfway through that movie that that's all we were getting from this was the movie. Like, I'm like, they're not going to give us a date. They're just going to give us this stupid movie that I don't care about. We're not going to get any gameplay. We're not even going to get a date. So I was very happy that when that movie ended, it transitioned right into new information about the game.
Yeah. So I appreciate the fact that they were showing off all the different ways that you can attack all these different missions, and it does definitely make for replayability and everything. Yeah. But I wish they would have shown more. Like, we know that you're able to take anybody in the city, and depending on what class that person ends up being, you can attack these things in different ways. But we don't need to see 4 different ways to do one thing and then go ahead and do the same thing with just a second mission. Right. I want to see somebody just roaming free. I want to see the actual recruitment process. I want to see like customization sort of stuff. I want to see actual like somebody legit playing the game. And maybe that came up in some of the media outlets playing the game itself, which I was not able to watch. Unfortunately, given my time frame and everything, I was literally able to watch it, get dressed, and go to work. So
right. No, and I understand that. I actually agree with you on that point. I think they should have shown more of the gameplay itself at the show. I do want to also just state, I thought Ubisoft Forward was going to be longer. It was very short.
Oh yeah,
it was barely an hour, and that kind of messed me up. And I want to talk about time management later in odds and ends, but that kind of messed me up, because I had told my wife, like, I had allotted my entire afternoon for that. She was okay with it, and then it was over, and she was like, "Was that it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was it. I don't care about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so I don't need to watch the half-hour gameplay that was already leaked on the internet anyway. So, yeah, we could just go watch sitcoms or something."
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but like,
there's going to be interruptions. I do want to say before you interrupt me.
You're going to interrupt my interruption?
I'm going to interrupt your interruption. I'm one-upping it. I'm one-upping it. I see you and I raise you.
You need to go one interruption deeper.
The media outlets did have all that stuff, and I want to talk about that with you because I did watch it. But I agree with you that it was a mistake not to show it on Ubisoft Forward. But again, I think one of the big mistakes of Ubisoft Forward was how short it was, and the fact that basically they said at the end that it was only half of what they were going to show.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to go into, was the fact that like they're hitting us with the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Part 2 crap with this. Like, this is the first part of it. We've got more later. Now, maybe this is stuff that they were going to show at like PAX or something along those lines, which obviously everything is canceled for the rest of the year at this point. But like, I get that. Why not take that opportunity, since all the companies like announcing stuff way too early anyways? Why not buff your show up a bit more? I mean, they definitely need something to fill out the news cycle about them right now.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about that last week a little bit. Like, and I said I kind of want to, on a whole, avoid that just because we're here to talk about the games.
Right, that was just
that. But I agree. That
was just my.
They didn't mention it at all. I do want to point out, though, I know you probably didn't watch the pre-show, but every pre-show segment and the main segment had a woman as the main host. She was the first woman you saw, like the first face you saw on each segment.
I noticed that during the main segment, and I didn't know if it was just me or
every section of the pre-show had like a prominent woman figured, and They didn't mention anything about it. We had assumed they wouldn't. They really can't at this particular juncture. But I feel like that was almost like, hey, we like ladies. We're sorry. But as far as the other stuff goes, I do want to talk about the other stuff with the media outlets, because Watchdog Legion is by far the game I am most excited for this holiday season. With the exception of Cyberpunk, I think everybody's excited for Cyberpunk, but
Yeah.
On a whole, I'm at a point where I don't think Cyberpunk could live up to what I think it is going to be and what they've made it out to be. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm hyped about it. I'm as hyped about it as I can be. There's no way it's going to be what I want it to be. So I'm kind of in a weird spot. But Watchdog Legion is without a doubt the game that I'm most hyped for. So if you go to IGN right now, not to, plug somebody else, but they have Mark Medina did a 5-minute video on like the recruitment process, just recruiting an NPC from start to finish. They also have a preview, like a 6-minute preview, and those are the 2 videos I got to watch. I know that Eric's did 17 minutes of gameplay. I have not gotten to watch that yet. But the coolest thing is the recruitment process. Like the woman even said in the preview, she was like, this might get a little repetitive later, but she's like, but what I've played, I absolutely loved. The characters all seem very unique, which she's like, I don't know how they did that, because because literally every character is just like basically its own thing, procedurally generated or whatever. So like, she's like, I don't know how they didn't just use stand-ins for everybody, but every character. She's like, the old woman I expected to look like the old woman in the original trailer. She didn't even look like the old woman that I got that was in that trailer. So it's kind of like, she's like, every character felt weirdly unique. And to actually get the NPCs, it's not like you just go over to them and you go, hey, you want to join my hacker group? You actually have to do missions. You have to scan them, figure out how to get them to join, do favors for them, and then actually require. So like basically it's like if you had a companion mission, like a companion recruitment mission from Mass Effect for every character in the game, every NPC in the game, basically.
Yeah, that's definitely, it opens up a lot of different possibilities. Yeah. And I know you're super excited about it. I mean, I'm interested. It's enough to have me interested in it. I would definitely like to try it out.
Yeah.
Because it does look really interesting, and like the different ways you can attack different situations and how wildly different they can be, that could open up some opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. And if there's a lot of meat on the bone with the actual, like, where you can go and what you can do with the story, like, I feel like that could be a real contender for my personal game of the year, at least at this point. It's the game I'm most excited to pick up day one. Okay, so that's Watchdogs Legion, with the exception of the one last thing I want to talk about it, which was the date. The date's bad, right? Like October 29th? Do we think that's a good, I feel like it's going to get buried.
It's probably going to get, well, it's before Cyberpunk. I know everyone is going around based off of what Cyberpunk is doing.
Right.
And I think that that's a smart move, regardless of if people are excited or not. That game is such a juggernaut at this point. Like, you want to steer clear, just like a Grand Theft Auto release, or they did that with...
There's one game announced at this conference that's not steering clear, and I think that's a big mistake. But you're right.
Yeah, but I think...
I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, I think it's a little crazy, too, the fact that this game was supposed to have already been out. And because of the arbitrary date that they set, we're almost a year beyond that. Mm-hmm. And it just makes you wonder, again, like what these companies are doing when they're announcing these release dates.
Well, and I 100% agree with that. That's something that has bothered me about this whole thing. And what's even worse is I know there's a lot of people out there like, oh, it was coronavirus. You've got to understand. Look, this one wasn't coronavirus. This delay happened long before there was a pandemic. There was barely even rumblings of a pandemic when this delay happened. So there is no reason that it should have been taken them this long to get it out, right? Like, I was truly expecting them to say August, like late August. I was really expecting that. And I've told you that off mic was what I was expecting. So for October, that's really far out, like really far out. I thought this was going to be the last game I bought up for my Xbox. This might be the first game I buy for my PC.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I will be playing it. I think it's in a tough spot because I think to put that game in the fall season, there's going to be a lot of contenders this fall. It's going to be overloaded with stuff. And I feel like that's going to have a hard time at this particular juncture. All right, so chronologically, let's now start to move into what the mistakes of this conference were, which I'm going to go right ahead and say it. The next 3 things they show after their lead thing are mobile games. What are you doing with your lives?
Yeah, and I remember, too, they announced that one mobile game. I can't even remember the name of it, but they had announced it like a year ago as it was.
Right.
So, like, I don't think mobile games rise to that level of hype that you can announce it so far out and then, like, still make, quote, major announcements for it. Like, are people playing it that much? Are they just capitalizing on Sam Fisher's face? Like, I don't...
Right. That really, I cannot believe that hasn't gotten more internet backlash already. They were expecting Splinter Cell. Everybody's been crying out for Splinter Cell. I have no interest in a Splinter Cell game. I want to tell everybody that right now. But it's a popular franchise, and people have been wondering where it's been. And people have even hinted at Splinter Cell stuff. So your Splinter Cell game is some weird cartoony thing that you just, like, slapped Mike Ironside's voice on? Like, that's weird. Like, I can't believe that. I will be surprised if they don't get any backlash from Splinter Cell people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that blew my mind, that game. But you also had the Brawlhalla coming to Android. Okay, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool. That's a big esport thing. For it to come to, like, a mobile platform is kind of crazy. And then you had the Might and Magic thing. Still, that's like, okay, first out the gate, you got Watchdogs. Okay, that's a big game for you. Then 3 mobile titles? Like, those are what you're leading with?
Yeah.
Like, even as a segue, it felt weak.
Yeah, like, and also, like, the Brawlhalla thing, what really threw me off about it is a fighting game.
Right.
Fighting games do not work well with touch controls.
No.
I can barely play Sonic the Hedgehog on my phone with touch controls.
Right.
So, like, unless you're explicitly using, like, a Bluetooth controller and a phone clip to play, like, that, nobody's going to touch that thing.
I can't imagine anybody touching that thing. I had no interest in it. I like Brawlhalla. I would not play it on a mobile platform. I mean, it's still crazy that it's coming to mobile. I understand that that's kind of a big announcement, but I don't know. It was very strange to me. Like, I remember sitting there, like, because I was sitting there and I was like, man, that's the 3rd mobile game they did. Like, what are they doing? So then we had Valhalla, right?
Yeah.
Which, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm not interested in this game. It doesn't look good to me. I am very unhappy with the Assassin's Creed franchise. I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey did not get the hate that it deserved, and it deserved a lot of hate because that game is a buggy freaking mess. And I can tell you it's a buggy freaking mess because I bought it on special 2 years after it came out, and it still has a ton of bugs. I had clipping issues. The game crashed on me not once but 4 times. And this isn't off a disc. I bought it direct. I even uninstalled it and reinstalled it. I had sound glitches. I had parts where, like, people would be talking and their voices wouldn't sync up. Like, and like, everybody loved that game. It was a game of the year contender. I could not believe the amount of bugs I encountered in that game. So I don't want anything to do with the next Assassin's Creed. I just don't. I don't care what they put in front of me as far as, like, content. I don't care if it's Vikings. I don't care what. It's just not going to bring me in because of that. But what do you think about the stuff they showed? Do you think that it was good?
So you know what? It was actually kind of a roller coaster when I was watching the whole thing. So they had said like, oh, finally the gameplay debut. And I'm like, okay. And what do? They open with more in-engine stuff. And
Right.
it's in-engine for like 3-4 minutes straight. And then finally it's them in a boat that's actually gameplay. I'm like, okay. And then they're sitting in a damn boat going down the river in gameplay. Like, is this really what we're going to get? Are we just
Right.
going to get them in a boat? And then finally, once they, jump out on land and start doing stuff, you kind of get a feel for what's going on.
Right.
It looks interesting, but I don't see the leveraging of next-gen hardware
Yeah.
with this.
I
I don't
didn't-
see, I had even laughed at one point when the one of the main characters or whatever is just laying into dudes and blood is spurting out. It literally looked like somebody got a bottle of ketchup and just squirted it out behind somebody. Like, are you kidding me? But
it didn't look good.
No, it didn't look good at all. It didn't look like it was taking advantage of next-gen hardware. But I will also say it looks very interesting in the fact that you can literally wield any sort of weapons in each hand to suit your own play style. And when I was already thinking about it, but they went ahead and mentioned the fact that you can dual wield shields.
Yeah, there's the same thing. And I know Phil Billy has talked to me about how much he wants just a shield as a weapon in Monster Hunter. It's just, I was like, that's cool. They got me on that one. That was cool.
And I had even said to Kayla, like, that was enough to make me kind of want to play it, because as a brief side here, I have wanted to play a character like that in a game for so long that I actually made a dwarf in Dungeons and Dragons that used 2 tower shields as weapons, and that was it. And that's it. This is my chance.
That's some deep nerd right there.
Yeah.
Some deep nerd stuff right there.
But the settlement building looks interesting, but again, it just looks like another Assassin's Creed game. So I don't know. I might try it one day, but I'm not clamoring for it.
Yeah.
I think that they could have that. Again, the leveraging of the tech for next gen doesn't seem to really be there. And I don't know if it's just because we're in that weird period of the first few games in next gen don't really take advantage of the new hardware because everyone's getting kind of used to it.
Right.
It could be just that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really, I don't know. It was fine. It just didn't do that much for me. I did like the shield part, like you said. I really did. It would be an interesting play, but I would only buy a budget. I'm just not going to go down that Assassin's Creed road anymore. I just don't feel. I feel like they get a lot of passes. I also want to say, can we just stop with the Templar Assassin Animus malarkey? That was really cool in the first 2 games. That should have stopped at 3. It should have stopped when Edmund's story finished. They need to stop shoehorning that into the game. Just make the game. I don't want the Templars and Knights, the Templars and Assassins in every facet of my game every time.
Yeah, it serves no real purpose.
It really doesn't. In fact, it just irritates me when I have to, for any reason, leave the world to go back to be some, office worker, in a genetic machine or something. It just totally pulls me out of it. I wish they'd just stop doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we had Rainbow Six Siege, and I thought, okay, we're going to get some new stuff for Rainbow Six Siege. That makes sense. That's a big heavy hitter for them. It's a big esports thing for them. It was nothing. It was a thank you video. It's a thank you video for the crowd.
Yeah,
that was really weird to me. That they didn't have anything for Rainbow Six for.
You would think that they would have some sort of even an anniversary pack. Hey, here's some commemorative stuff and
Yeah, something. I was why even waste our time? You've only got under an hour. Why? I felt like when I saw that video, I felt like, are they filling right now? Is this filler? You don't have enough to show for filler? You don't have an E3 conference, basically? That's what you're telling me?
Whatever happened to what was it, Rainbow Six Quarantine?
Yeah,
Is that did that ever come out, or is
Well,
that still?
I mean, do you want to talk about the stuff we didn't see that we should have seen here? Because I
We
can think
can,
of,
we can bring that up now. I think
sure.
the halfway point.
Rainbow Six Quarantine, we saw nothing from that. That was announced a year ago. Nothing from Gods and Monsters, which is supposedly going to be renamed to something else, but nothing from that.
No.
And then we saw nothing from that game that was in beta last time they showed at E3, which was the roller disc game that I was interested in. Nobody else was. But you remember it was like roller derby, but it was like shots. Nothing from that. Where were those games? Where were they? Those would have been great. Those would have been better than mobile filler, you know?
Well, I know the roller derby, the roller champions game. It's either had a soft launch or is still in beta on PC, because I've heard of other people playing it. So I know that has still been around.
Oh, okay.
It's still kicking around there, and that is a game that I would be interested in trying out too.
I want to try that. That looks fun. That looks like good fun.
But yeah, the Rainbow Six Quarantine.
No Gods and Monsters.
No Gods and Monsters. And I still I would have thought that at this point, I mean, they did say when the rumors were floating around last year that, there might be another Splinter Cell in the works. But you would think that they might have even just teased if they were going to do it or something like that. I think that's one of those things that they're like, yeah, we're not doing it, but we're actually doing it.
Right.
Oh, and then what about Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Right. Still
that
silence on that front. We haven't seen anything from that. And I want to point out that they showed those mobile games and this thank you video during Ubisoft Forward. On the pre-show, they showed DLC for The Crew 2 and for Breakpoint. Why weren't those on there and then the mobile in the pre-show? Why are those in the pre-show? I don't understand. It wasn't anything massive, but those are better filler than some port to a phone, or a thank you video from Rainbow Six Siege. I don't know. That was really weird. But why don't we take, I don't know. What's our time at? I know we're on the air, but just tell me what our time is anyway.
We're at about 35 minutes currently.
All right. Why don't we we're going to talk Ubisoft until odds and ends. Why don't we just take a quick break and then we'll come back with the rest of the show of Ubisoft, and then we'll go into odds and ends. What do you think?
That sounds good.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to the back half of the conference. All right, so what we had left was some words from Phil Spencer, which were very nice. Always nice to hear from him, but nothing that was really special about anything other than smart delivery is good, and it is. And then we got the other two new games, the other big announcements from the conference, and that would be, let's start chronologically, like you said. Hyperscape was the first one, and there's been a lot of talk about this on the internet already. We already kind of knew what it was. It's a kind of weird battle royale, kind of futuristic, kind of almost shooter type thing. So what'd you think about this one? I know you're not a battle royale guy, but what'd you think about this one?
So this one, I think I really took homage with the phrasing and how it was pitched. So I knew that it was announced, and I kind of had a basic idea of what it was. And what was really intriguing to me is the fact that it's actually, the game itself is influenced by voting on events in the middle of the match that happen through Twitch.
Right.
That is really interesting. The fact that the game is built around spectators.
Yeah.
So this could be something that if it got big enough, it almost could be a major televised tournament or something.
Yeah.
To where
I feel like this is an esport contender
yes.
in the vein of Valorant and Overwatch and that sort of thing.
Yes. But I had seen the trailer for it for the first time during this conference. I'm watching the trailer, and how it is shaping up to be, it almost looks like and sounds like Ready Player One.
Yep.
turned into a game.
Mhm.
And I'm all about it. They're talking about like, oh, there's something wrong and we need to figure out what it is. And there's this evil corporation who's doing stuff and the world sucks and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my goodness. So is it going to be like, I'm thinking it's like, it's going to be a full price game that's going to have an actual single player story, and it's going to have a battle royale multiplayer as well. So I'm all about it. I'm like, I'm in. I go online to go look at to download the Uplay from my computer to download this beta to jump in on it.
Right.
And then I see it's just a free to play battle royale like the rest of them.
Yeah.
I
don't know if I'd say like the rest of them, but I understand your disappointment.
Yeah, no, it definitely does different things than other battle royales, and I appreciate those things. And
it's hard to do that in this space nowadays.
Yes, that's true. But how it was presented at the show and what I was expecting from how it was presented is totally different than what it actually is. Like it didn't give me a reason to jump into battle royales. Yeah. I'm not that big a fan of battle royales at all. I played maybe a grand total of 2 to 3 hours of Fortnite just to give it a try, and I do not like it. It is not fun to me.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not for everybody. I do enjoy a good battle royale. I mainly like battle royales because I think I've said it on the show before. It's one of the only competitive multiplayer in which you are beholden to no one and no one's going to bother you no matter what happens. Like, I'm not going to get shit afterwards. Like, if you're in solos, I mean, not if you're in a team, but if I'm not going to get crap messages afterwards because they're going to be they're not going to care. It's just too many people to like worry about that stuff. I don't have to worry about dragging my team down, but I'm also playing against people, which I enjoy that. But not to counter what you said, but give you a counter kind of point of view from it. And I agree with what you said. I knew this was a battle royale going into this because there was IGN did some firsts on it that I checked out. So I knew way ahead of time that this was a single player. This was a battle royale, a multiplayer battle royale all the way. I didn't know about the Twitch stuff. I think that's also very innovative as well, as far as this genre goes. But then the trailer just confused the hell out of me. For a half second, even knowing what I knew, I was like, is there going to be story to this? Like, what are they doing? And then there wasn't. It was just a battle royale. And I guess, like, even Fortnite Battle Royale has some sort of weird story from what I hear. But, like, the way they presented it at this show was very confusing to me. And I would love it if this game had a simple story, like even if it wasn't long, because that is a way that it might bring somebody like you in. That's how you get people into multiplayer in a lot of those games is you present kind of a story. They play it. They like the playing so much that they want to keep playing. They turn to the multiplayer and possibly get hooked on that, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I wanted something for me out of it, and it looked like it was going to give it to me, but it didn't. And that was a real letdown.
It was a real phantom way of like presenting that game. And I don't understand why they did, because personally, I've watched this game a little bit. Like I said before this, I've seen some promotional stuff on it, and I've read some promotional stuff on it because I am interested in battle royales. And this actually looks really innovative for the battle royale space. It looks like different, kind of akin to what Apex Legends did, like actually bring something different to that genre. Why didn't they just lead with that? You know what I mean? Like, if they're not going to give a story, why make this weird story trailer if it's not going to have a story, you know?
Right.
Like, I was very confused. Like, I don't think it would have hurt them at all if they had just come out and been like, look at all the cool stuff you can do in this battle royale game, you know, instead of like presenting it as this like narrative driven game that turns into a battle royale, you know?
Right. Like, and maybe eventually they're going to do something like Fortnite does have that Save the World, I think it is.
Yeah. Well,
which was the original idea
game
of what Fortnite was supposed to be.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Skyrocketed. Yeah.
Like,
and that would maybe make me interested in playing it. But like, I feel like the wording, I think that's been kind of the theme across this this whole show is communication.
Yeah, I don't think it was very good. I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. I don't think that was very good. And that brings us to the next stuff. We got a message from Yves Garamont, which basically just said, you know, he loves us and he's got one more thing for us. He also told us that there's another Ubisoft Forward coming, which confused the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I think everybody involved. I mean, before we get into the last thing, why? What, like, was this what you were going to show at E3? It has to be what they were going to show at E3. This is nothing. Like, this is what you were going to bring to E3? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this has to be, like it can't be PAX is after E3. So, like, this can't be what they were going to bring to E3, but it is. This was their E3 show. So one of two things has happened. Either they've cut their E3 show in half for some inexplicable reason, or this was literally what they were going to show at E3. They would have been laughed out of the conference center.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here briefly in regards to this. So I personally
love this podcast.
I personally never really expected much. There's some conferences that I don't really expect a lot from.
Okay.
Ubisoft is one of those.
What?
It's like Ubisoft and like EA has like 2, maybe 3 games that I find interesting, but the rest of it is just like sports. Just like with Ubisoft, I think it's all Tom Clancy. Like it's that sort of vein.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but there's a lot of good Tom Clancy games out there.
Right. I'm not discounting them, but like for my own personal, like I've always seen the shows as not like powerhouse shows, like jaw on the floor shows.
See, I thought their last E3, obviously not this one because it didn't happen, but their last E3 was the best developer conference at the show. Like, I thought they presented their games better than anybody else. The Bethesda one was weak.
Bethesda one was very weak.
The Square Enix one was weak, with the exception of like Avengers. Like, I thought their last show at their last conference was absolutely a knockout. And some of the games that came out weren't great, like the Breakpoint, but the conference itself was really good. Like, I don't know. I see what you're saying. I mean, but at the same time, like, I thought this was weak even for them.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it I'm going to say, too, is while the same can't be said for Watchdogs Legion, because we've already talked about the reason, like, or not the lack of reasoning as to why it was delayed and announced and everything in the first place. Right. Some of the games that I think that they're going to be announcing were, in fact, impacted by the shutdowns. Like that fair. I can, like, and if that's why they chopped up everything and presented it the way it is, like, okay, so like I can't necessarily knock them for that, but I feel like, again, companies like doing this anyways. Why don't you just show us what you're making anyways and slap the in development sticker
right
on? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, they were in development the last time. We didn't get dates on those things. We weren't necessarily expecting dates. Just don't give us dates, but show us something to get us excited. And I mean, otherwise, don't have a show. I mean, the only information we gleaned from this was release dates on Far Cry 6, which is not going to make that release date. I'll put down the money right now. That's going to be delayed. And Brawlhalla and Watchdogs Legion. That's it. We just got those dates. That's the only information we got, other than the mobile games. Who cares? Like, I don't understand, like, why you couldn't just take whatever you had and put them in that spot. Like, this is very strange. But we're kind of getting in on a tangent. We should move to Far Cry 6, which is which is what everybody's talking about on the internet. They got Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad, Chicken Guy, to basically be the bad guy. It was interesting because my wife, who is not a gamer, loves Breaking Bad. She perked up when she heard his voice, and watched the trailer. The thing is, though, well, you talk because I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm so sick of being negative on this show. I swear to God.
So, we knew that this was coming because it leaked days before. So it was just a matter of what they were going to show. And they showed a fairly lengthy cinematic. And it was I think it was a very powerful cinematic too. And it
was well
definitely, it was well done. It set the scene. It definitely leaned into his strengths as an actor. You can tell that he plays that straight, serious, but a little crazy dictator. I personally, I'm a latecomer to the Far Cry series. We didn't start playing until 5.
I'm sorry.
But
4 was the best one.
4 is I have 3 and I have 5 and I have
dude, you like leapfrog the one that's good.
I know. That's the one of the ones we need to get. But
3 had Voss, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And try Primal. Everybody hates it. I don't know why. I love that game. Try Primal.
But I think that is the one game that kind of like really grabbed me, and I'm like, okay, very very interesting. As far as the release date goes, we'll see. I don't know.
I don't buy it. Not under these conditions. I thought it was real ballsy to give us a release date on a game we don't have gameplay footage for.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you're going to show us a big CGI cutscene with Giancarlo Esposito and then tell us the game that we don't know what it is coming out then? I don't buy it for a second. Which is going to piss me off because, like I said, stop giving us dates. Just wait. Just give us windows. 2021. That's all you needed to write there. Okay, so Far Cry, I have a tortured. Far Cry is the abusive husband that I keep going back to. I played Far Cry 4. I loved Far Cry 4. Then I played Far Cry Primal. I loved it. The world didn't, but I loved it. Then Far Cry 5 came out, and I was excited for it, and I went to play it, and well, the game itself is really good, but the ending is, God, hang yourself worthy. To which I'm like, okay, that was terrible. I'm never going back to this. And then they announced a post-apocalyptic game.
Yeah.
And I had said during 5, I'm like, they should really make a Mad Max game. And then they made a Max game. So I'm like, okay, I'll try New Dawn or whatever it was called. I can't remember. And that game was terrible, real bad. Hated that game. The story was awful. It was just not fun. Didn't like it. So I'm like, no, I'm really done. I'm definitely done with them. And now here we are, and they're bringing Giancarlo Esposito out. And I'm actually very confused too because, the apocalypse happened in Far Cry world. Are we just ignoring that?
I mean, it could have been this could be in a different period of time.
Okay. All right.
So it's definitely in a different part of the world.
It is, but with what happened in 5, it didn't really matter where you were.
Plus, I don't think those games are necessarily like beholden to a specific timeline. I think it's just like, here's the name Far Cry. You know what you're getting yourself into. It's just a new story, which is kind of what they did. I mean,
and that's fine. The only thing that bothers me about that is there is a game that's a direct sequel of the Apocalypse one, which made me kind of think, okay, well, it's Apocalypse now. I don't know. I'm very confused by it, but I don't know. This one, like, I don't know. I feel like Giancarlo Esposito is not enough to get me excited. I want to see what the game is. Is it the same game that we've played 5 other times, just with the chicken guy talking really cool the whole time? Because if it is, then I don't want to play it. I just don't want to. I don't want to spend my money on it again. So, like, what are they bringing to the table? What are they going to show us that's new? And so far, they haven't shown us anything. And so I'm kind of a little bit bothered that everybody's so excited about this. Like, it's just a really cool actor. Like, you remember when Kevin Spacey was before everything, when he was cool, when he was in a Call of Duty, that Call of Duty sucked. Like, why are we excited about this? And, like, it's just an actor. Like, I don't understand. why we're getting excited about this before we've seen anything from it. I mean, and I guess I'm kind of in the minority because a lot of people liked Far Cry 5, which is insanity to me, but a lot of people did. So I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I enjoyed Far Cry 5 for what I played of it, but I didn't end up finishing it. Now my wife, she actually finished it, and it was the fastest game she's ever beat. So like, as I had said when we were in the middle of our recordings here, she actually poked her head in and told me that she's going tomorrow to put money down on it. So
did she like the ending of Far Cry 5?
No.
Good.
No.
Good.
She actually
Good.
went through and got both endings and hated them both.
For a second, I was very afraid I wouldn't be able to be friends with her anymore. I like, I don't know how I could sit in a room with somebody and then be like, oh, I liked it. No.
You know, just
nihilistic and bullshit.
To close out the conversation on this, that is briefly, the biggest thing that I had with the ending, I guess it would be the subsequent announcement of the Far Cry New Dawn, is the announcement for New Dawn ruined the ending of Far Cry 5 less than a year after the game came out.
That's true.
So, like, I mean, if you were just still going through it or wanted to pick it up, you know, at a bargain price and just were in the middle of playing it, like, if you see that commercial or the announcement for it, it's ruined for you.
Yeah, it is. That's true. That's true. I will say pick up Far Cry 4. It is a lot of fun. I still enjoy Far Cry 4.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
All right. Well, let's go to odds and ends if we got time. Okay?
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to odds and ends. Basically, these are just news stories we've collected that we want to mention, maybe say a couple of things about, but don't have time to actually go into a big talking point about it or aren't big enough. And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite segments because this was supposed to be a cut for time segment that we keep doing because I want to do it too bad. So first and foremost, my first one is there's a rumor going on around Twitter about the weight of the PS5. We've already talked about how big that sucker is. The weight right now is rumored to be 4.78 kilograms. Now, if anybody is wondering, I did the conversion. That's 10.5 pounds.
That's a big old beefy boy.
Yeah, just to give you context, my daughter weighs 30 pounds. She is 3 PlayStation 5s. She's 4 years old. That's how big this thing is. Like, it's huge. It's absolutely astronomically huge. I just felt like I needed to mention that. Like, it's ridiculously heavy and huge. Okay. I know I bash on Sony, but that's too heavy for a box. I think everybody out there will agree. You said
I mean,
10 pounds, dude? 10 pounds.
I'm not carrying it around everywhere.
You're not putting it on a shelf.
Well, you got to also
bearing, baby. You better have a 2x4 under that thing.
My shelf is a bit more sturdy than yours.
Oh, I don't want to get into a shelf comparison contest here. This isn't a let's whip out our shelves and see which can hold more. Ridiculousness. It's going to be Bowen after a year. I don't care where your shelf is. Okay, so that was that one. My shelf sturdier than yours. Phil Spencer has fired back a little bit on some comments and some rumors about the first and foremost, he said that he thinks that generational exclusives are bad for gaming. I 100% agree with him, 100%. And then he has also said that the idea that playing a game on a previous system would hold it back is just meme-worthy stuff. And basically what he's referring to is it's going to be just as fun to play it on that. He basically then went into kind of elaborate where, like, people play games on lower grade PCs all the time and they play just fine and people enjoy them just fine. That will be the difference. Like, it's not going to be like basically he's saying the games that are coming out in the next generation that will also be playable on the old generation are in no way, shape, or form held back by the technology of the old generation.
Which is definitely a fair point.
I mean, it
but
is. I mean, obviously they will have load times. The new systems won't. You know, there's a couple of differences. They'll be better graphically pretty, but like it's not going to change the experience really. I don't feel like.
Yeah, that kind of, again, just further cements my apprehension for choosing a Series X over a PS5 personally.
I mean, that's fine. It can, but the reason you're not choosing a Series X is because of terrible shit that Sony's doing. Like, I'm going to go ahead and say that again. Anybody who's picking a PS5 for generational exclusives is picking it because they're doing something terrible, which is holding games from everything else. And this Phil Spencer comment was the generational exclusives things was directly in response to Cerny basically coming out and saying that that the new system has generational exclusives because we believe that the generation should have some difference between the old one, and that they don't want to hold it back. And so that's what he was directly referring to. And that's fine. I get where you're coming from because the exclusives are there. Like, you won't be able to, you can play everything on your Series S or your Xbox One S that comes out. That's fine. You can't play everything on the PS5. But again, that's kind of a dirty trick that they're doing on you and everybody else.
I mean, there was that article that I shared too over on Discord about people's interest in the next generations.
Right.
I just want to know, like, I want to be a year from now and see what is going to happen, to see how it shakes out and whose ideology is going to reign between the two companies.
It is going to be a very interesting time. Like, it's going to be very interesting to see, because I think this is the first time that the companies have been so ideologically different in their presentation. Like, the 360 and the PlayStation 4 were they were the same thing. I mean, they weren't the same thing, but you see what I'm saying? Like, there wasn't really a ton of differences between, like, this is our system, this is their system, this is our exclusives, this is their exclusives. And that's how it was with the generation prior to that too. With this generation, it's very much like, we want gaming to be like this, and then the other company being like, we want gaming to be like this, and that will make for very interesting stuff out there. It won't matter to me. I'm going PC. I'm going to be out of this fight, which I'm very happy to be. And yeah, so that'll be that. But it'll be very interesting, like you said, to see what's happening when the smoke's clearing.
Right.
I wanted to just comment on Trials Rising was in the pre-show, which this will segue into my last one. Trials Rising was in the pre-show, just showing off something. And I don't play Trials Rising. That's the motorcycle type side-scrolling game thing.
Yeah.
But they did this hilarious bit. Like, they were absolutely hilarious. I urge anybody to go check out the Trials Rising section of the pre-show. It was two guys. It was the two designers, and one of them would be like talking. Like, he starts off by saying, like, we're doing this safe with the quarantine and whatever. And then you just hear the other guy, and he's just like, hey, did you tell them we're being safe? We're staying away from each other. And then it's like a pan out thing, and it shows they're like half a football field away from each other. So, like, it would go back to the one guy, he'd start saying something, and then it would just, the other guy would be yelling from the other side of the football field, whatever, like, hey, did you tell him about the new course? Like, it was hysterical. I was giggling. I was laughing so hard. I wish it had been on the main show, because it would have been a great, like, something to talk about, you know, but I urge anybody to go out and check that out. And then finally, the last thing I want to mention is, you know, the Ubisoft Forward was an hour long, barely. But they had 2 hours of coverage lead up to the show. An hour and a half of that 2 hours was devoted to this game called Trackmania, just like a racing game, but you build the tracks, and there's a lot of like league play sort of thing. You know, is it better to be on the pre-show? Like they got an hour and a half of time to just talk about their games, and anybody who's just like turning on YouTube ahead of time just to have it on until the thing comes on sees this Trackmania thing. I saw more about Trackmania watching this than I saw about any other game, and all the other games got 4 or 5 minute spots on the actual show.
Right.
And competed with like mobile releases. I thought it was really weird. We're in a time now where everything's going to be like an internet broadcast or whatever. Is it better to just like, hey, I'll be the indie company that goes on the pre-show because I'm going to get 2 hours of time to talk about my game. They had a competitive thing where a bunch of YouTubers played it together. They had the developers played it together. Then they had a deep dive on the track creation, and they talked to a developer. Like, it was just an hour and a half on this Trackmania. They got the most time of any game, pre-show or show.
Yeah, that's very odd. The pre-show thing. I usually don't even watch pre-shows personally.
And that might be the counter argument to it, but just like, I don't know, I'm just doing the math in my head. Like,
if I'm you get more time. Yeah, you get more time on the pre-show.
Like, would I rather just be there, just on the pre-show? Like that would be, I don't know, then being on the main show, getting a 4-minute spot, competing with AAA games that's all they're going to be talking about, whereas I get to talk for an hour and a half before we even talk about those, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It was weird. But that was my last one.
All right. Well, I have a couple.
Okay.
First, the Castlevania Grimoire of Souls for mobile is shutting down already. A year after its soft launch. It didn't even do a full launch because they weren't making enough money off of it, even though it only launched in Japan and Canada. Konami, what are you doing? You have an IP that people want a game from. It took Igarashi to go out on his own to go make his own version of Castlevania, basically, because you guys hold the license hostage and won't do anything with it. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I was anticipating this one too because I want a nice, good, brand new but classic Castlevania game, and it just we can't seem to get that for whatever reason.
Right.
That just the fact, we're not making money off of it. Like, yeah, it was only out in 2 countries. You didn't even bring it to America, like one of the other major markets. Like, are you kidding me? Moving on from there, Sims Sparked is a TV show premiering on TBS. It is a Sims competition show where a bunch of Sims game changers, the game changers from the EA, and I guess some other YouTubers as well, are competing in Sims challenges for $100,000. This is a real TV show on a real channel. I thought Lego Masters was out in left field. Like, this is like even further out there. It just kind of blows my mind. I mean, I think it was inevitable that we were going to get to this point with these competition shows and whatnot, but I just think it's just very strange. And I know my wife will be watching it, so I will inevitably be at least watching an episode or 2. So that'll be pretty interesting.
I was about to say, is Kayla going to be glued to the seat on that one?
She's not chomping at the bit for it. She's kind of just as confused as I am, but I think she's going to watch it for sure, at least. There is a Horizon Zero Dawn tabletop game coming in November.
Oh,
yeah, that'll be very interesting. We didn't get much information.
Like role playing or board?
Board.
Oh, okay.
From what it kind of looked like, though, it uses dice and cards. So I think it's one step towards the direction of possibly role-playing,
right,
which I think that would fit very well as a role-playing game. You just adapt it into whatever system.
Yeah.
But they have minifigures of all of the various robots in the game, and you go around just trying to take them out. Very interesting from what it looked like. So that'll be coming out in November. And more so for like the gamey end of things, a listing for Skyrim Special Edition for the PlayStation 5 has showed up on Amazon. The game that refuses to die. It is across how many generations now? It'll be 3 generations.
It'll be three.
3 generations. It would be interesting, especially leveraging the new hardware to like really bolster the graphics and everything, and I think it'll make it look really good. But I have already bought this game twice, almost 3 times, honestly. I almost picked it up for the Switch as well. I don't need Skyrim in more places. I love Skyrim. I love it to death. It was my first real Bethesda game that opened me up to their stuff. Y'all, stop. Please.
Hey, Todd Howard has a famous quote from last, I think it was either last year or the year before, and they asked him, like, are you ever going to stop remaking Skyrim special editions? And he said, as soon as people stop buying it, we'll stop making it. Because every time they release that, they buy that stuff up, man.
That's fair.
I love Skyrim. I have bought it off 2 generations. I bought it on the 360, and then I bought it again on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I have loved it to death. I do not foresee me buying it on another generation, but, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, I never got to try it. Now I get to try it in 4K,
That's true. Plus, you could get it for your PC and have limitless mods.
Yes. Yes. Well, you can have those on console. They have mod support on console.
Yeah, but you are limited, especially on Sony's end. Sony's end, you are extremely limited with mods.
You're not really limited on the Xbox.
No, not too much.
A lot of stuff on that Xbox. Yeah. I've done tons of modding to my Skyrim games.
It has come out that Left 4 Dead 3 and Half-Life 3 were both in development and canceled somewhere around 2015, I believe it was. So the only thing that I remember based off of these 2 pieces of information was the Left 4 Dead 3 was leaning more towards an open world sort of Left 4 Dead, which is interesting, but I don't know.
I don't think that works, really.
No, yeah.
I like the Left 4 Dead kind of survive through the level with your 4 people.
Yeah.
Leave them behind. That made for some really cool local play moments,
Yeah. Half-Life 3, I've not played Half-Life, but I feel like they, at this point, can't make Half-Life 3 because it will never live up to expectations of what that game could be. Just like Duke Nukem Forever. Same sort of deal. I mean, granted, that game was garbage, but...
I don't agree with Randy Pitchford on a lot of things, though. But I do agree with him on one thing, and he was interviewed on Unfiltered through IGN about Duke Nukem Forever, and he was like, look, it's not great, it's not the best game, but we purchased it and we made it, and everybody wanted it, and it's out there. It's not the best, but it's out there so that all the people who were waiting for it can finally stop waiting. And he's like, and that's worth something. And I, like I said, don't like to agree with the dude on many things. I agree with him on that. Half-Life 2 was left in a cliffhanger. End it. You're right. It's never going to live up to the hype. It's never going to be what anybody wants it to be. But until you finish it, it's not going to be anything, and that's just wrong. Like,
true.
Put closure on the story. Do your best. Take your licks. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing a side story that just sets up Half-Life 3 even more.
Right. And then one final thing, a collector's copy of Super Mario Brothers for the NES has sold for $114,000,
nice.
Making it the most expensive game ever sold. I believe it was an official. It was a certified condition. I forget what that's technically called.
It's graded.
Yeah, it was a 9.4 condition. So I don't think anyone's ever going to see a better condition Super Mario Brothers than that.
No, I don't think so.
But that will be it for all I have for odds and ends this week.
All right. Well, let's move to Horrible Arena then.
Alrighty.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to the end of the show, the main event, what you guys have all been waiting for. That's the Horrible Arena. What is the Horrible Arena for a person who has not listened? Well, first of all, you should listen more often. Second of all, what we're going to do is we're going to pitch to you a game. We're going to pitch to you the title of the game, the developer of the game, and then what the game is, based on certain pre-existing criteria in which we named last week. We take turns naming it, so each one of us always has home field advantage. Last week it was Neil's turn, and he named 2D. Well, he named platformer, mascot platformer. So like your Sonic the Hedgehog, your Mario. You didn't say 2D though, right?
No, not 2D. It doesn't have to be 2D. It definitely could be a 3D platformer.
Mine is definitely 3D. So there you go. So now the Quantum Coin has been tossed, deciding that Neil will be the first to pitch. Take it away, Neil.
All right. So I am going to pitch something that's a little bit different. Mine is going to be a rhythm-based platformer, and it will be starring Beethoven. So this will be called Project Crescendo, and it would be made by Nintendo, or at least in one of the indie studios that is housed underneath Nintendo. But I think overarching it would be Nintendo, because this would be kind of their flair. Through a horrible series of events, somehow Beethoven was sucked into a time wormhole and was transported into another universe filled with music. This music drives everything in the universe by a beat. So the beat of the music would go, but platforms would move to the beat of the music, or enemies would move to the beat of the music. And it would be your job to, as Beethoven, get through these different levels in a 2D space. I should have said that from the top. But to get through to the end of these levels. And when you complete these levels, you expand your basic musical knowledge, and different levels would be themed after different music types. So there would be like the standard, like a techno sort of level or world where a couple levels would be based off of techno music, or there would be some other like a rock or hip hop sort of world where all of the theming and beats of the music for the different levels was all based off of those. And I think that's about it. So yeah, Project Crescendo, where you play as Beethoven in the future, man, in a musical future.
Okay. All right. Interesting. That's definitely a different take on mascot platforming. I'll give you that. Okay. So mine. All right. So my developer is going to be the developer Image Informed Games. They brought us all the Steam World, Dig, and other such games. So they have definite experience with side-scrolling multiplayer with pixel art, and that's definitely what I'm going to lean into. Mine is Project Mastermind. Now, anybody who was around in the 90s and enjoyed mascot games probably played a game called Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. They got really excited about it, and then they played it and realized it was kind of not good because it had stealth in it, and he was a thief, but that was really it. For the rest of it, it was just, your normal platformer. It was a 3D platformer. You collected stuff. You fought bosses at the end. You just couldn't get caught in certain areas. But what if we did a real fun, cartoony heist game? So You play a fox, a really smart, intelligent fox. He's the mastermind behind the plan. Now, the levels themselves are all 2D, but they all have different rooms in which you have to kind of do something different. You will recruit other animal friends to be part of your group, your party. These guys will all have jobs to do, and they'll be able to get you through the platforming in different ways. I see the levels almost kind of taking place kind of like a relay race. You'll do a thing, then switch to another one to do a thing, then switch to another one to do a thing. Even social stuff, side-scrolling social stuff. So like I see maybe you collect a swan friend. She's very charismatic. She's kind of a grifter. So you put her in the party with all the other animals who, oh, excuse me, guys. Sorry, I'm having some stomach issues. She's with these other animals. She's smoothing them. She's making a distraction. Meanwhile, you collect the mole. He's able to gain you access through some sort of digging. Hey, SteamWorld Dig does digging great, so he has to do some digging through that. Once he gets you in, then you need the electric eel to find a way to get to the security stuff to set off, to get rid of that. He's kind of like your computer expert or whatever. And it goes on and so forth. You're trying to collect an item from the place, steal it to earn more money. And then you can buy higher level friends to get you through bigger and better situations. So the idea kind of comes down to this really cool kind of like 2D Grand Theft Auto heist sort of situation with less shooting, more finesse. Sure, there's plenty of bad guys and enemies, but each different section would take place in different ways. And each different area that you have to heist from has a lot of different ways to go at it. Maybe you don't even hire someone to do the social. You bypass the social part. Maybe you don't hire anyone for the digging. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe you need somebody who blows stuff up. Stuff like that. And basically what you'll do is you'll purchase these animal friends kind of with you. So you get this kind of like cool cartoony mascot thief game, kind of what I feel like Sly Cooper should have been and never was. You get that with this, and you play your fox. He's the mastermind. He's collecting everything. So that's it, guys. You've got 2 projects to vote on, Project Crescendo or Project Mastermind. You can do the voting in all the places, which we're going to describe in just a couple of seconds.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to the end of the show, everybody. So, Neil, you got anything to plug?
Well, we are still chugging through OMG Dungeons, and I do believe we are nearing the end of the game, are we not?
We are. However, we're at least a few episodes away from that for them. We have 3 episodes. Well, no, we have 2 more episodes to post that we've already recorded. Then we have to record at least 2 more episodes. There's 2 more levels left. And that's if we don't find any other side dungeons or whatever and don't do any DLC. But we are closing in on the end, yes.
Yes.
It'll probably be sometime in August, but yeah, we're closing in.
So we are still going through that. Who knows? Maybe we'll either keep on going on with that or jump along to something else.
Yeah.
And then you and I are still doing Streets of Retro, trying so hard through all manner of technical difficulty.
Yeah, I gotta say though, even with the technical difficulties, I think this season has been the best. Like these last 4 episodes have just been the best in my opinion. Like, yeah. So I'm very excited to keep doing that show. I do love doing that show. As far as me, you can check out everything our channel has to offer. There's too much to name. Please do. And if you like us, tell your friends about us, share us, subscribe to us. Be our friends. We like people. Join our Discord. Well, I should say the things. You can also check us out on Facebook at Old Man Gaming DH, on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9, and then of course you can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence this and all of our shows. And guys, girls, non-binaries, as long as you guys keep watching and listening to this, we will keep making them. We'll see you guys next week. And I will always love you. love you. I hid that one in for myself. I hid it for myself.